Bienvenido, Señor Presidente, Mr. Prime Minister. Welcome back to Davos. Welcome back to the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. This is the fifth time that we have the pleasure to have you here on this stage. So, Prime Minister, under your leadership, Spain is experiencing robust economic growth after a period of intensive reform, transforming the country into one of the growth engines of the Eurozone. GDP grew by 3% in 2024 and will remain strong at 2.3% this year based on the OECD numbers. So last year, you were the fastest growing major advanced economy. Spain has also played a critical role in addressing some of the most urgent global challenges. As a country highly engaged on the climate and nature agenda, you have also understood that adaptation and mitigation represent both a clear human imperative, but also an economic opportunity. In the Middle East, Spain has worked tirelessly to promote peace, stability, and humanitarian support in the region. So, Prime Minister, you have also strongly supported Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, working with international partners to provide both humanitarian and military assistance while pushing for lasting peace, just peace, and security in Europe. Today, we are fortunate to have you with us, and you will share with us your vision for Spain and its role in Europe and the world. And obviously, the world is changing rapidly, so we're very curious to hear from you. Mr. Prime Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mirk. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. Look, I had planned to use this speech to highlight, as you mentioned before, the outstanding economic, social, and environmental performance of my country, of Spain. In recent years, Spain has become not only the fastest growing economies and job creators in the West, but also one of the countries that has reduced inequality and greenhouse emissions the most. We are becoming proof that social democracy truly works, that a nation can gain competitiveness while also fostering social justice, protecting nature, supporting a global order based on openness and multilateralism. We have the results, the facts, to show it, while those who defend the opposite model have nothing, just words and promises wrapped in radical measures that led us to chaos in the past and will do so again if we don't act. That's why I have decided to change the topic of my speech and talk to you about one of the main tools that is being used to show this chaos. Social media. Look, back in the early 2000s, social media started to thrive under a promise. Their founders told us that they would unite people and strengthen our democracies with new ideas, with more pluralism, with extended accountability over the powerful. And based on that promise, we all joined. Public institutions, governments, companies, people, around 5 billion users. That is over 60% of the global population. In the following years, part of that foundational promise was fulfilled. At least for a while. Social media did change the way of work, the way we work, get informed, interact with each other. They build bridges between like-minded people who were physically far away and expanded the scope of the public debate by allowing citizens to share their views beyond the constraints of governments and traditional media outlets. Movements for justice and change like Me Too or Fridays for Future would not have been possible without them. But with all these gains also came huge downsides, hidden in the bowels of the algorithms, like invaders concealed in the belly of a Trojan horse. We didn't realize it then, but we do know. We do now. Now we know that the seamless and free connectivity offered by social media also came with cyberbullying, hate speech, sex offenses, privacy violation, and a terrible rise of anxiety, violence, and loneliness. Now we know that far from bringing humanity together and empowering the people, these platforms have resulted in a concentration of power and wealth in the hands of just a few. All of this at the cost of our social cohesion, our mental health, and our democracies. So let's open our eyes. Academic research and political science are there for anyone who wants to see them. Major social media are harming the liberal order and the democratic system in at least three powerful ways that we cannot continue to ignore. First, social media are oversimplifying and polarizing the public debate. 280 characters or a 30-second video are not enough to explain almost anything important. The migration of the political debate from the institutions, newspapers, and coffee shops to social media is making us replace rigor for immediacy and complexity with brevity. It is preventing us from explaining things properly, from recognizing that choices often involve trade-offs, and from engaging in substantial conversations with those who think differently. Instead, it is making us focus on creating catchphrases to gain likes and shares of our own echo chambers. And this, in turn, is transforming us into a society increasingly divided and easy to manipulate. Such a drift is by no means the result of chance. On the contrary, it is deeply connected to the second way in which social media are eroding our democracies, by fostering misinformation. Every day, our feeds and walls are filled with altered images, flawed data, and fake news that distort our perception of reality. Fake news that made many people believe that the COVID-19 virus didn't exist, that the ethnic and cultural minorities that live in our countries are the source of all our problems, that the state is a scam working against the interests of citizens. Every day, we consume millions of fake news that are 70% more likely to be shared than the real ones, and that the owners of large social media companies have chosen not to stop. Not because it is hard or because they have read Derrida, but because they are good for business, because they drive more clicks and advertisers, and because they help to advance their political agenda. And this is the third and most terrible way in which social media are damaging our democracies, by becoming tools to replace votes with likes. We were told that these platforms would help to level the playing field, but instead they have made it even more unfair. Data suggests that around 1/3 of social media profiles are actually bots. and that nearly half of all internet traffic is driven by them. Searchers are completely biased by ad services and boosting hacks, and they feed algorithms far from promoting fairness, are being engineered to hide certain political views and foster others. What was supposed to be a space for constructive debate and the free exchange of ideas has become a rigid battlefield filled with manipulation, censorship, and falsehood. And let's be clear, this didn't happen by mistake. It has been fueled in a systematic way. Of course, by foreign powers like Russia that want to weaken our institutions and alter our democratic processes. By anti-system political forces that want to bring chaos to our societies and use it to seize power like fascists did in the past. And by owners of the big social media themselves, a small group of techno-billionaires that are no longer satisfied with holding nearly total economic power. Now they also want political power in a way that is undermining our democratic institutions. And they don't even hide this goal. For instance, Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and one of their leading ideologies, openly admitted in an interview that techno-billionaires want to overthrow democracy because, and I quote, they have stopped believing that freedom and democracy are compatible. And we should wonder, the freedom of whom exactly? Because democracy is not only compatible with the freedom of the people, it is the necessary precondition for it. What truly limits democracy is the power of the elites. It is the power of those who think that because they are rich, they are above the law and can do anything. That is why, my friends, that is why the tech billionaires want to overthrow democracy. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the truth and the terrible threat we face. The technology that was intended to free us has become the tool of our own oppression. The social media that were supposed to bring unity, clarity, and democracy have brought division, lies, and a reactionary agenda. And they have begun to compete unfairly with the strategic sectors of our economies, such as banking, retail, and media outlets. And they have ended up in the hands of a reduced group of men, by the way, only men, whose combined wealth triples the entire European Union's budget. In this context, many public figures and media outlets have chosen to give up and leave these social platforms. A decision that, of course, I fully understand and respect. In fact, I myself have considered doing the same, because, frankly, my life would be much easier. However, I also believe that social media have transcended what they once were. I believe they are too important, especially for younger generations, to keep considering them mere businesses, owned by someone who can manage them at their will. I believe social media are now a common resource for humanity, like the oceans, and they should be protected and managed accordingly. Because in my view, the original promise that social media were built upon is still possible. If we correct the many wrongs and do things right, we can still turn these platforms into a space of dialogue, participation, and freedom to improve our societies and strengthen our democracies. The fact that so many people are using them for that is proof. But of course, to achieve this, we will need to act swiftly and decisively. We need to create a common front that unites all who believe in democracy, regardless of their political ideologies and take bold measures to tackle this bold threat. And today, I would like to advance 3 ideas, 3 measures that I will propose to all European leaders in the next formal council meeting that will take place in Brussels. First, I propose putting an end to anonymity on social media. In our countries, no one can walk the streets with a mask on their face or drive a car without a license plate. No one can send packages without showing an ID or buy a hunting weapon without giving their name. And yet, we are allowing people to roam freely on social networks without linking their profiles to a real identity. This paving the way for misinformation, hate speech, and cyber harassment, because it is facilitating the use of bots, and it is allowing people to act without being held accountable for their actions. Such an anomaly cannot continue. In a democracy, citizens have the right to privacy, not to anonymity or impunity, because with those two, social coexistence would be impossible. That is why I believe we must push forward the principle of pseudonymity as the functioning element of social media, and force all these platforms to link every user account to an European digital identity wallet. This way, citizens could use nicknames if they want, but in the case of a crime, public authorities would be able to connect those nicknames to real people and hold them responsible. Because accountability is not an obstacle to freedom of speech, it is an essential complement to it. On social media user, or it's much better to say, one social media user, one real ID. This is the only way to really ensure that minors do not access inappropriate content, that people who commit crimes are banned or prosecuted from social networks, and that the millions of fake profiles that exist and influence the public conversation are removed. My second proposal is to force open the black box of social media algorithms once and for all. The values of the European Union are not for sale. Safeguards like content moderation and fact-checking are both legal and moral requirements that must be followed by all. That's why I think we have to fully enforce the Digital Service Act, making it clear to big companies that its provisions are non-negotiable and strengthening sanctions for those who do not comply. By the same token, I believe we should also reinforce the capacities and competences of the European Centre for Algorithm Transparency, so it can inspect the functioning of social networks without any limitations, and create special funding to make this issue one of the EU top research priorities. We must put our brightest mind to work on this, just as the enemies of democracy are doing. Of course, there's no point in holding social media users and employees accountable if their owners are not, especially considering that they are among the richest and most powerful people in the world, and that the biggest fine ever imposed by the European Commission on a tech company equally to 0.6% of its annual profits. I repeat, 0.6% of its annual profits. Or, to put it differently, to what that company earned in less than a day. So that's my third and final proposal. That we make sure that social media CEOs are held personally accountable for non-compliance with laws and norms in their platforms, just as it happens in other sectors. For instance, the owner of a small restaurant is responsible if their food poisons customers. Social media tycoons should be held responsible in their algorithms poison our society. In short, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm proposing is that we take the fight, that we face this threat head-on, because our ability to do so will likely determine the health, safety, and freedom of our children and the generations to come. So let's take back control. Let's return digital platforms to their original purpose and transform them into safe and fair spaces for conversation. And let's stop those who want to turn them into a weapon for dismantling our democracies. In a nutshell, let's make social media great again. I know it won't be easy. I know we are all scared, because the people we are up against are extremely powerful. They have almost unlimited financial and technological resources and very dangerous allies, and they play dirty because they don't follow our moral rules and live in a world without consequences. But I know that we can win this battle, because we are right, because we are more, and because we've done it before. Thank you very much.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for this special address. As is our tradition here, we would like to have still a little bit of a conversation. I think we have a few minutes left. You've covered democracy, social media. Let me ask you about the transatlantic relations overall. You have stated that both the European Union and the United States are stronger together, and obviously it has been a very important relationship for both. In the current environment, how do you see the relationship evolving? Are you optimistic that we have what it takes to make sure that the European Union and the United States will remain stronger together?
Well, thank you very much, Mick, for this question. I do believe that the European Union and the United States, we share a strong transatlantic bond, rooted in different aspects such as culture, history, common interests, common values. We are, how can I say it, allies. If trade war is not in the interest of the US, neither the European Union, is a zero-sum game. So, my approach is to be constructive, and that the European Union try to strengthen this transatlantic bond. Second, I think that, of course, the world is very big. There are global players besides the US, and I think that the movements that the current Commission, and with Ursula von der Leyen as president, is taking, go, in my opinion, in the good way. I explain myself. I think it is very important, the trade agreement that we achieved, the European Union with Mercosur, also with Mexico. We had different agreements over the last months with Chile, with Canada years ago, and I'm pretty sure that the Commission is also, working with other regional blocs and countries to strengthen and bridge this trade relationship. I think this is very important for the European Union, because we will earn more influence in the geopolitical debate and geopolitical stage, and of course it will enhance our economic development as a continent. And then I do believe that we need to highlight and defend our way of doing things, the European way, as President von der Leyen said last Monday, I believe, or Tuesday. And in this regard, I think that we need to take some lessons from the current debate and to have a stronger ownership in very specific sectors such as defense, technology, and energy. And this will be the approach of Spain regarding the US and our transatlantic relationship, and of course, within the European Union. I think that we have an opportunity if we move forward and we make stronger our political project, which is the European Union. And talking about this European way of doing things, I do believe that coming back to social media, it is important to fully implement the Digital Service Act, as well as fully implement the first ever regulation on AI that was achieved under the Spanish presidency of the European Council.
Thank you. And before we close this session, one other question. I mentioned in the introduction that Spain has been one of the most dynamic economy in the European Union recently. But there is a lot of commotion around the economic agenda right now at the EU level as well. We all know that we have two important reports that came out from Mr. Letta and from Mr. Draghi last year. We also know, of course, that we have a new commission with many new initiatives. What would be, based on the Spanish experience, because you've been looking at how to attract more high-tech, more innovation-intensive companies, you are very competitive on the energy landscape. So what are the lessons that maybe you have learned? And based on that, what would be your bold proposals for Europe on the economic front so that it can be more in control of its competitiveness in this changing world?
So I don't like to give any kind of lessons to my allies and the rest of the member states. I don't like to see a kind of different blocks within the European Union, the northern bloc and the southern bloc. But it's true that from the south, we can also provide solutions to common challenges that we are facing as a continent or as a political project, the European Union, I mean, no? For instance, you know, I remember when the war started, the energy crisis that we suffered, and how from the Iberian Peninsula we provided different answers based on our different energy policy, renewables and green energy policy, to earn more energy autonomy as the European Union. So I would say that we can provide solutions to common challenges that Europe is facing. Second, I do believe that that this combination of structural reforms and funds to enhance this digital transformation and a green transition is a good formula, is a good equation, which I think that we need to repeat it after 2026, because at the end of the day, if we define altogether public goods at European scale, such as defense, security, digital, or science and energy, as Draghi reported stated, I think that we could enhance productivity and competitiveness for Europe. And last but not least, I think that that we need more trade, no less. I think that, as I said before, what is important to show the rest of the world is that we are an open society, open economies, and what we want to do is to strengthen multilateralism and, of course, to bridge positive relationship with other parts of the world. Of course, we want to do it with the European Union and with the US, of course, but we also want to do it with Latin America, which is a region very close to Spain and, of course, to Portugal, but with Africa, with Asia, with China. I think one of the challenges that we have ahead, the European Union as a whole, is how do we define a positive and a constructive, and of course an exigent one, relationship, a common relationship towards China. So we have a lot of challenges ahead, but as all Europeans know, crisis is that tool that Europe needs to move forward. The thing is that really we know what we need to do. Mm-hmm. You were talking before about the capital union market. It is a must. Mm-hmm. There's a lack of political willingness, and this is something that now we need to overcome. We need that political willingness in order to have that tool and to enhance productivity and competitiveness in Europe.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for your address today, also for the short conversation. I really appreciate it that you shared your views, but also you shared a lot of solutions, ideas, and it is a very can-do, on the front foot attitude that you showed us here. Really appreciate it. Good luck with your work to more competitive Europe, and we look forward to welcoming you back at the annual meeting in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.